Welcome back, theology students. Okay, let's just dive right into it. Today we are unpacking chapter 153, Vassago, before the Council of Three Powers. And let me tell you, this explainer is a deep, profound look at a systemic crisis. We're talking about a moment in history where the established order of the world was suddenly forced to look right into the face of its own obsolescence. We're going to examine this incredibly tense, highly documented encounter between Vassago and the highest governing body of the realms. Because, this isn't just some dusty historical recounting. It's a real-time analysis of what actually happens when the very physics of power are threatened. So as we go through this, I want you to pay close attention to the sheer philosophical weight of the arguments. We're going to unpack the literal and metaphorical darkness of this meeting and really figure out why this specific chapter represents such a terrifying turning point for the council. Picture the scene: the heavy, oppressive stone vaults, the deep, creeping shadows of the council chamber. It serves as this incredibly stark visual metaphor for the rigid traditionalism that we are about to see challenged. This is the Council of Three Powers. They are entrenched. They represent these immovable, absolute laws that have governed existence for ages. And the atmosphere in that room? It is thick with tension. You really have to imagine the suffocating weight of centuries of unbroken tradition literally bearing down on this single, fragile conversation. The physical space itself totally reflects the uncompromising rigidity of the council. But here's the thing: that rigidity is about to be violently shaken by the revelations brought before them. It's within these dark, metaphorical stone vaults that the ultimate fate of their universe's structure is being debated. Now, we first need to establish the intense gravity of this historical turning point. And that turning point is made possible only because Vassago was invited under a sacred truce. Why does this matter? Well, think about it. You don't just invoke a sacred truce for a minor border dispute, right? The fact that the Council of Three Powers brought Vassago, a recognized bitter adversary, into their innermost sanctum speaks volumes about their level of desperation. It shows the sheer magnitude of the threat they're facing. This inviolable diplomatic condition is literally the only reason Vassago can stand before his sworn enemies without being immediately destroyed. It sets a profoundly tense, dark storytelling tone right from the jump. Both sides are temporarily suspending their inherent hostility simply because something much, much worse is looming on the horizon. This truce, it's like a fragile glass floor, and this entire terrifying dialogue is taking place right on top of it. Let's break down the absolute authority sitting in that room, the Council of Three Powers, sitting in judgment to interrogate their grim guest. As our source strictly outlines, Vassago is being questioned by three distinct, massive pillars of this governing body. First up, we have the Earthmasters. Think of them as the fundamental defenders of natural law and physical boundaries. Right beside them, you have the Angelic Hierarchy. They are the absolute enforcers of divine order, morality, and celestial structure. And finally, we have the specific presence of Ilyan Marr, who is driving the intellectual and philosophical interrogation regarding corruption. When these three powers align, they literally represent the totality of the universe's status quo. They are the architects, they are the wardens of reality. And yet, here they are, backed into a corner, forced to interrogate an outsider just to understand a threat that completely bypasses all their respective jurisdictions. So you have this massive philosophical clash happening in real time. The council is operating under the assumption that their traditional structures, the divine order, the natural law, are permanent. They are desperately clinging to these old laws and to hope. Vassago, on the other hand, he brings a grim, unyielding pragmatism. He isn't there to boast or gloat. He is there to deliver a cold, hard truth. He systematically dismantles their comfortable traditional boxes. And the tension in this verbal debate is just palpable, because the Council is frantically trying to fit a universe-ending threat into their familiar framework. But Vassago is forcing them to strip that away and look at the raw, inescapable danger right in front of them. And here is the absolute core of Vassago's message to the Council. He tells them point blank that Belial isn't just seeking territory. No, Belial intends a total rewriting of the very laws that define every single form of power. This right here is the crux of the entire explainer. Standard warfare? That's just about moving borders. But Belial's ambition is about fundamentally altering the source code of reality itself. The text specifically highlights that he seeks, quote, not merely conquest, but the rewriting of the laws. Think about the implications of that. The Earthmaster's natural laws? Gone. The Angelic Hierarchy's divine order? Completely obsolete. If Belial succeeds, what even constitutes power will be entirely redefined according to his own dark design. It is a systemic crisis where the rules of the game aren't just being broken, the game itself is being erased and replaced. This revelation forces an incredibly tense debate about the systemic implications for the 72, and honestly, whether free will can even survive Belial's ambition. The source text explicitly notes that the Council questioned Vassago about the 72 and free will. And from a theological perspective, guys, this is easily the most terrifying part of our analysis today. If Belial rewrites the laws of power, does free will just become a mathematical impossibility in his new system? The 72 who have historically represented these distinct fixed entities of influence, would they just be overwritten, deleted? The Council is literally grasping at the existential threads of their reality. If the laws of nature and divine order are what dictate the parameters of free will, a complete rewrite by Belial could mean the literal extinction of choice itself. No way around it. Ilyan Marr is the one really driving the theological interrogation here. Marr pierces right into the philosophical core, directly asking, if the foundation of our reality is rewritten by a corrupted hand, does not corruption itself become the only absolute law? I mean, wow. Why is this so vital? Because if Belial redefines power, does corruption simply become the new baseline natural law? And if corruption is suddenly systemic and unavoidable, is hope even a logical concept anymore? Marr's desperately probing to see if there is any mathematical or spiritual survival for hope in a universe that is entirely scripted by Belial. It is a high-stakes, desperate intellectual sparring match against Vassago's incredibly grim truth. But honestly, the most fascinating detail in this whole exchange is the sheer objective terror it represents. Vassago openly admits that even demonic factions are terrified of Belial's apocalyptic overreach. Let that sink in for a second. We are talking about factions that fundamentally thrive on chaos, right? Rebellion, destruction, that's their whole thing. Yet our source material explicitly states, even demons feared what Belial intended. This completely shatters the traditional binary of good versus evil. Belial's plan to rewrite the laws of power is so extreme, so existentially devastating, that it actually unites normally warring factions in sheer dread. It proves that Belial is no longer just some dark lord seeking dominance. He is an existential threat to the fabric of existence itself, terrifying even to those literally born of darkness. If we map this out, you can really see the escalation. It builds sequentially from a breakdown of traditional power into a full-scale eschatological nightmare. Based on Vassago's testimony, we can break the threat down into these distinct phases. Step 1 is the initial conquest. That's the outward aggression the Council first noticed. But as we've learned today, that's just scratching the surface. Step 2 is the true horror. The rewriting of the absolute laws of nature and power, effectively erasing free will and codifying corruption. But Vassago doesn't stop there. He pushes the Council past the systemic rewrite straight into the final, most terrifying consequence. This systemic destabilization triggers a massive chain reaction, leading us directly to step 3, an ominous existential awakening that absolutely no rewritten law can control.
Vassago ends his testimony with a chilling final prophecy, leaving us to question what systemic power can possibly hold back the Forgotten Ones once they awaken beneath us. The source text drops this absolute bombshell right at the end. While the council is obsessing over Belial rewriting the laws of power, Vassago reveals the ultimate apocalyptic symptom of this entire crisis. The very foundation of the world is stirring. The Forgotten Ones are awakening. It implies a threat that is older, deeper, and way more incomprehensible than either the Council's traditionalism or Belial's new laws. So, theology students, as you analyze this chapter, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. If the established laws are failing, and the new laws bring nothing but corruption, how does a universe survive the awakening of its oldest nightmares?